back to the Toffee Blues, your source for all things Everton. We're joined again by Paul for the Everton-Arsenal match preview. Obviously, we've come off the Merseyside derby, and we mentioned that on Extra Time. So if you want to know our thoughts on all of that, go check that out. Arsenal, though, coming in after 2 losses as well. Their form's starting. A loss last night to United. They're starting to take, which I think they were a bit unlucky actually. From what I've heard and what I watched of the game, I thought they were a little bit unlucky. I think Ronaldo sort of bailed out United, which is something we've heard quite a bit of. Are you confident for the game, Paul? Or
no. I know they lost to United, but they weren't on the end of a hammer, and weren't they? They didn't lose because they didn't play well enough. They lost because of a very controversial refereeing decision and the fact that Cristiano Ronaldo was playing for the opposing team, and Bale scoring big goals, the big moments, is what he's made a career on, hasn't it? So, no, I don't look at Arsenal and see an easy touch at all. I know they had a bad start to the season, but things seem to have clicked for them now, don't they? I don't think they're going to get in the top 4, personally. Top 6, maybe. I think they're in that conversation if they can have a season where they can keep all the players fit, because they haven't got Europe, have they? So they're not going to have that to tax them. So Arsenal are a side who I think slowly but surely, maybe too slowly for a lot of people's liking, especially the fans and the people in the media who support them. They are a club that are going in the right direction, unlike Everton. I do think whether Arteta's the right man for them long term, I don't think so. I've never really been convinced by Arteta as a manager, but I think there is a lot more that Arsenal as a club in the last 12 months have got right than they have got wrong. They just need to have something to show for it now. I know they got that FA Cup early on, didn't they? But it's time that they kind of kick on and achieve more, whether that's another domestic trophy or whether that's something like a really good league finish, like maybe if not 4th, then maybe a strong 5th or something like that. They need something for Arteta to hang his hat on other than that early FA Cup. And I wouldn't be surprised if they achieve it this season or maybe next season. Because as I said, I think they are slowly but surely going in the right direction. They've still got massive problems as a club, but it just doesn't seem as terrible as it did maybe 18 months ago when Arteta was right under pressure. I don't know if we're going to get anything out of this game. We're going to need Calvert-Lewin and Mina both playing, and is it likely? I know both are back in training, aren't they? Calvert-Lewin's back on the grass doing light training. Whether he's going to be ready to play 90 minutes for Monday night, I don't know. Whether Mina's going to be... Mina's been back in training for about a week now, hasn't he? And I don't know whether it's because Benitez just hasn't wanted to risk him or what, but I think unless both of those two start, and Decore's starting as well, then I don't see us getting anything out of the game. If they do, and they're both ready to play, over an hour each, if not the entire game, then I think there's a chance we could maybe grab a draw. If the crowd gets involved and sort of we channel our anger in the right way, because we know Goodison can be a very intimidating place for opposing clubs when the fans are channeling their anger in the correct way, where they're not taking it out on the players on the pitch and when we turn it into a bear pit. Because we've beaten Arsenal in this type of scenario a couple of times over the last few years. We beat them, I think, under Koeman, didn't we, with a late header? And there's been other times where we beat Arsenal away last season. So Arsenal are not a team we'll look at and think they're definitely unbeatable, like I was probably looking at Liverpool as. But I don't fancy our chances if our injury situation hasn't got any better.
Yeah, I mean, you are right. Mina's apparently trained and he could return. Andre Gomez has also returned to full training, although I don't imagine he'll make much of an appearance. I
don't think he's Rafa's cup of tea, Gomez, whether he's fit or not. I don't think he started him in a league game this year, has he?
No, and I don't think he's one of the players you should be sticking in a 2-man midfield either, if that's the way he's going to go forward. Apparently, let's take these with a pinch of salt, because there have been times, where players are out and then they make a miraculous recovery. But apparently it's still Davis and Calvert-Lewin out. And Solomon Rondon is still to be assessed. I'm sure we'll all be gutted if he doesn't play. It could mean a chance though for Genk Tosun, who I think we saw about 5 minutes of him, didn't we? In the derby. This could really be that. I think he's more than likely. I don't know what your thoughts are, but I think he's more than likely going to play Tosun over the 2 youngsters come Monday.
Yeah, and I'd understand that more than I understand him playing Rondon over the youngsters, because Tosun, even though he's a very, very limited footballer, Tosun is a player who is capable of scoring in the Premier League and having games where he really makes a positive impact for the team he's playing for. We've seen him score goals, not many, admittedly, but he is some sort of presence in the box, sort of thing. He can get his head onto the end of things. If the cross is right, he can, if he gets a yard of space, finish a ball. It's the only thing that's ever let Tosun down is all round play is not quite good enough. He's not quite strong enough. He's not quite good enough at holding the ball up. He's not quite good enough at taking defenders on. He's not quite good enough at anticipating where the ball's going to be. He's just kind of mediocre in all those departments. And if you played him in the Everton team for a prolonged period, like a good 7, 8, 9, 10 games, if he started every single one of those games, I don't think his goal return would be very good, personally. But he is a player who, against certain teams in the right situation, can offer something to your team. He has done it in the past at Everton. He has come into the side and made a positive impact when he's got on the pitch. So if Tosun's fit enough to start and have a good 60, 70 minutes, if not longer, and basically it's a choice between him or Rondon, or it's a choice between him, Rondon, and the two kids, I wouldn't have a problem with Tosun starting. He's not going to stay at the club. Again, his deal expires in the summer, I think. It's absolutely nailed on. He's not getting an extension. We all knew he wasn't getting an extension 2 years ago, because we decided that he was surplus. I think, I don't know, how long ago was it, where we loaned him to Crystal Palace, and then he got that good start, and then he got a really bad knee injury. It was well over a year and a half ago, wasn't it? Was it 2 years ago? Was it January 2019 or something?
I think so. Yeah, I always forget how long he's been with us. One of my mates was messaging me the other day and was like, it was when he came on the derby. He was like, "How is he still at the club?"
Yeah, he came in January 2018, I think, because he was signed by Allardyce, or he was signed by Steve Walsh whilst Allardyce was the manager. He came to the club in 2018 because I remember he got announced at half time when we were losing in a derby, and I think it was a 4.5-year deal where it would take him until the end of 2022. Yeah, summer of 2022. So his deal expires in the summer. So no, he's not done anywhere near enough to justify the contract we gave him or the money we spent on him originally. But there is a player in there who is not absolutely useless like some of the players are. He can get on the pitch and do something right, and if you put him in the right situation. So if he's going to start ahead of everyone else, if Calvert-Lewin's not fit, then I think it's probably the best thing to do.
Yeah, I mean, I will say this for him, like, for whatever his limits are, he is an international footballer who's scored in the Champions League. I do remember hearing rumours that Mashiri also quite liked him because he watched Besiktas versus Monaco.
Yeah.
And he was like, just hit it up top for him, which, if Fahad knows anything about football, that would suit Allardyce. That would suit, maybe us a little bit better, because we're putting crosses into the box now, where some of the crosses I'm watching coming in are a bit, could need that aerial presence. And weirdly, I don't think Rondon is that. So maybe no. he'll get chances. I can't, whether he'll score or not, I don't know, but I think he'll get chances in the system.
Yeah, I agree. Whether he bags one, that's on him, isn't it? But I think if you're an Everton player, you'd rather be hitting the ball into St. Tosun than hitting the ball into Rondon. There's a better chance that it's going to end in a goal with Tosun on the end of it than Rondon. Because Tosun, as we said, for all his limitations, Tosun has had suitors in the years we've been trying to get rid of him. The problem has always been his wages. He's not willing to take the wage cut to go back to Besiktas permanently. We had a deal in place with Crystal Palace where he went on loan there, and if he made a certain amount of appearances or scored a certain amount of goals, whatever it was, they would agree to buy him. It was all put in place, and then obviously he got a really bad injury in his third or fourth game, and it buggered the whole thing up. But there have been teams who have been coming in willing to take Tosun offers. It's just he's not been willing to go for various reasons, whether it was because it was teams and countries he didn't want to go to, because he's had German clubs wanting him and he doesn't want to go to Germany, apparently. He's had Besiktas trying to get him back constantly, and he did go back on loan, but only when we agreed to cover most of his wages, so he wasn't taking any drop. And he went to Palace because they were willing to offer him a good wage that wasn't all too dissimilar to what we had him, and all he had to do to get the move there was basically just go and injury put pay to that. Whereas it's certain other players at the club, like a Wolby and Rondon, and you could probably name a few others, we can't give them away seemingly.
Yeah, no, it's the story of his career, because obviously you named Palace and the knee injury, and I think the Sikitas, again, it was a knee injury, and then obviously COVID-19, I think he got COVID as well on top of his knee injury, but it's a story of his sort of career. Apparently that's more than likely where he's going to end up when we let him go on a free. He's probably going to go straight back to Besiktas, which is another wonderful, successful signing.
Yeah, so just a place he shouldn't have ever left in the first place, and he only left because we had an idiot director of football and an idiot owner who both thought he could come into the team and work well under Allardyce, and Allardyce was gone within a few months of him getting here.
It reminds me a bit of it's exactly similar to the Moise Keane way. It's like, might as well just got him on loan. He's joined us for, money, and then we've sold him back for less than we bought him for to the exact same club.
What was the point?
Yeah. You sit there thinking, what a waste of money that was.
Waste of time, waste of money, waste of emotions, wasn't it? Because fans were, particularly Moise Keane fans, were excited when we had this player coming in. Fans were excited for Tosun, or at least very, very open-minded about Tosun. I don't remember anyone grumbling when we signed him, thinking, who's this idiot that we're bringing in, like we were with certain other players. There was no backlash. Fans were all for giving him a chance and hoping it worked out, and it just absolutely hasn't it? Some of it's been down to luck, some of it's just been down to him not being able to produce.
Yeah, I mean, I think that season we bought him, he was having a really good Champions League as well. I think he'd picked up.
Yeah, he got a few in the group stage for Sitcast, and obviously, apparently, one of them was against Monaco at a game Mashiri was at, and that's made Mashiri's eyebrows perk up and thinking, "Oh, I'd love to bring him and see what he can do for my club."
Which is just mental.
Just classic. It was just far out Mashiri all over, isn't it? Sees a player play well in one game, and all of a sudden assumes that you could put him in the Everton team in the Premier League and that he'd still be as good as he was for the previous club.
I know people argue stats in the eye test, but you got to give the eye test more than one game of football. It's crazy. So obviously that one's up. Do you think if Rondon's fit, he's going to risk sticking him back in? If he does,
if Rondon's fit and Calvert-Lewin's not, then yeah, I fully expect Benitez to play Rondon, because people try and say, "Oh, his hands are getting forced. He's only playing Rondon because he has to." He brought Rondon to the club because he likes Rondon, and he clearly thinks that Rondon offers something to the team. Now, he's the only person in the world who probably thinks that. Well, he's the person who ultimately picks the team, so he's the only person who matters. So, in that sense, yeah, no, if Rondon's fit enough to start and Calvert-Lewin's not able to play any part, even on the bench, then I fully expect Rondon to be involved, 100%.
We'll try and work through the rest. Obviously, I think the lineup will be. I think it'll be the same defence unless Mina's fit, which then he'll come in. I think he'll play Alan Decore. I think the only other talking point that fans have is, do you think he'll play Gordon this time, or do you think he'll stick with Gray, Townsend, and Iwobi?
No, I don't think he'll bring Gordon back in. Demarai Gray was one of the very few players against Liverpool who sort of could come off the pitch with his head held high a little bit. And I don't just say that because he scored, say that because he actually looked like he was really given his the player who was marking him a battle. Looked like he seemed like he wasn't overawed by the occasion. He wasn't doing stupid things with the ball. He didn't play like a player who was really anxious and didn't know what to do. He was just being Demarai Gray, wasn't he? He was just playing like he does normally, which is free-spirited and not overthinking things. So Demarai Gray will stay in the team. I think he'll probably keep Townsend in the team because he's a veteran. He's been there and done it. He's played against Arsenal before. He's beaten Arsenal before. He knows what he has to, what level of performance he has to give in order to help the team do well against Arsenal. Iwobi, I pray to God we don't play that fella ever again in any game. But he didn't start Iwobi in the derby, did he? So no, I think unless Mina and Calvert-Lewin come back and they're both able to be involved from the start, wouldn't if we can get them on the bench, it was either put them on the bench or nothing, then I'd rather have them on the bench. But if they're both not ready to start, I think we're just going to play the exact same team again.
Yeah, I can't help but agree with that, to be completely honest with you. Obviously, there's a lot more than just the obviously the Arsenal game, which we'll get into just a little bit later on. I'm saving that just towards the end. But this would be I mean, looking at the results we've got coming up, obviously the derby was always going to be tough. We've got Crystal Palace, who, I mean, on their day is still a handy team. But then you've got Chelsea.
That's another thumping. Yeah.
Yeah. This and Palace are the two where this not so much. Maybe Palace is probably the one we're all looking at, hoping we'll get something more out of. But
We've got to get it. We've got to get at least 3 points out of this game and the Palace game. We've got to win against at least one of them. I know if you'd offered me a win against Arsenal or a loss against Palace or vice versa, or 2 draws, then it's at the point now where we can't afford to lose any point. Do you know what I mean? We need every point we can get. If you say, right, if we get 2 draws, at least we've stopped the rot. Do you know what I mean? We've stopped losing, and the players can hopefully build a bit of confidence again. I'd happily get annihilated by either one as long as we could guarantee we beat the other one, because we just need to get away from the bottom. I still stand by what I said for weeks now, that I don't think we're going to be in a relegation battle once we get them back. I still think we're going to be right down the league. We're not going to be anywhere near the European places, sadly. I can see a very, very grim season where we're just looking upwards all the time, but I still don't think we're going to be finishing in the bottom 3. I don't think there's 17 clubs in this league that are going to finish above us. I just don't. When you look at some of the teams in the league, as bad as we are, do you know what I mean? It's not nice. It's very, very unnerving seeing where we are at this stage of the season, and we're down there, and there's only, say, a few points between us and the teams who you think are nailed on to go, like Newcastle and Norwich, and there's other teams which are right down there which are picking up points, like because Leeds won the other night, didn't they, as well? But I still stand by the fact that it's far, far, far too early to start saying Everton are going to be in a relegation battle. There's still a lot of the season to go, and there's going to be a lot of winnable games in the second half of the season if we've got Calvert-Lewin and Mina back. But we need every point we can get at the minute. So if it was a choice of 1 win and 1 loss or 2 draws, then no, it's just take the 3 points. I'd rather take the 3 points and get hammered in the other game that we lose, rather than sort of shore ourselves up at the back and just grind out 2 hard-fought draws where we play really well and everyone thinks we were unlucky. No, we just need every point we can get, no matter how we get them.
Yeah, I agree. I agree with all of it. I don't think we'll be in the battle, and I don't think it's worth even panicking about that yet. But with like you said, we could do with getting 3 points. It's still better than 2. That'll give us. I think that puts us currently. Obviously, teams will move by then because it'll be 2 games time. That'll move us up to 11th.
What are we like? What are we like? 5 points off the 4 or 5 points off the bottom 3.
5 off Burnley.
5 off Burnley, but are we like 5 or 6 points off 7th still as well?
You
look at the table quickly. Yeah. Who's in 7th? Is it Brighton? Is it or?
It's United now on 21, so we're like
6 points.
That's 2 wins.
That's not a lot. Do you know what I mean? The league's still incredibly tight. It's just what Everton fans do. We're hysterical, aren't we? And fans were carrying on this way a couple of years ago when we were in the bottom 3 under Silver and it was December. And I didn't think we were in any trouble then. I agree with the fact Silver had to go because clearly the situation was unsalvageable and we were never really going to go anywhere when we kept to his vision, whatever it was. He just wasn't the man cut out for the job and it was never going to get any better long term. But there was more reason to panic then than there is now, because I think the team we've got now, when everyone's back fit, is better than the team that we had when we sacked Silver and brought in Ancelotti in that month of whatever it was, December, early January. No, it's too early to talk about relegation battles. It's just what Evertonians are like. They see us down there in 16th or 17th place and they don't take into context the fact that we've only played about half the season and we've had a really hard run where against all the top teams, most of them away from home, and the fact that we've had loads of players injured who are probably going to be fit for the second half of the season, and the fact that we're still only a few points off the teams who are in the top half of the table amongst the European places. Now, I don't think we're going to be in the European places come April, May, as I've just said. I think we are going to be too far behind. We're going to have dropped too many points and other teams are going to have picked up too many points, but we're not going to be anywhere near where the likes of Newcastle and Norwich are come April, May. They're still going to be right down there because how many games can you realistically see them winning before the end of the season?
Exactly. And I mean, you mentioned the European, we're 8 points off West Ham in fourth. Like not like I agree. I'm not saying we're going to get them, but just to put it in sort of retrospect, for how close we are at the bottom, we're also, like you said, the table's that tight. 3 wins would put us,
Yeah,
would shoot us straight back up.
8 points off West Ham when they're having the best season. They're having their best season anyone can ever remember. So far, at least anyway. It's 8 points, but in people's minds, you'd think it's about 80 points, wouldn't you?
Yeah.
But
You'd
you know
think
what I
with
mean?
Norwich right down there looking a bit.
It's just an ego thing. It's just the ego. Fans are looking at the table, and it doesn't make for good looking. And people are overthinking it and thinking that the situation, in terms of where we are in the situation, is terrible. We've covered that in the last video with the balls, and it needs to be sorted out one way or the other very, very, very quickly. But Everton are not going to be the next I've heard shouts like Everton could be the next Sunderland. We're not at that stage yet. I'm not saying we can't ever get to that stage unless things change. I would never rule that out. The club can only continue to go backwards, but the club isn't at that point yet. You know what I mean? The club is not going to be in a relegation battle. I'd bet my house on that this season. Not saying they couldn't be in 3 or 4 years unless certain changes are made. That could happen, but it's not going to be this year.
No, I completely agree. And like just to point out as well, after the Chelsea game, we've got Leicester, which, Leicester always start a bit slowly and then pick up. Then we've got Burnley. And then after that, it's like Burnley, Newcastle, Brighton, Norwich, Villa, Leeds, Southampton. So there's a run of games that you'd like to think if we've got everyone back.
And in January, we've maybe picked up 1 or 2 loans, which it seems that we're going to try and do at least.
Yeah, you'd hope, not saying we'll win them all, I'm not going to be silly, but some of them you would hope we get a couple of wins from at least.
Yeah, it was like this every year nearly under David Moyes. We'd start the first few months of the season terribly, and now it was different in his case because he didn't have any resources. We started so badly because we weren't able to back him with anything. So you couldn't blame anyone for starting badly, or at least not anyone, the manager or the players. We had to just make do with what we had. But Moyes would always have us in the bottom half, come November, December, and fans would be thinking, oh, another season of nothing. And then the second half of the season would kick in and the cups would start and everyone would kind of look at things differently and reevaluate. And usually it's a bit of a good run of form when we got all the tough games out the way. And we'd always find ourselves in around 7th or 8th, or some seasons we got higher than that. We got 6th and 5th. And now, granted, it is a much different league now, but we've been in this situation those times where we start the first half of the season really badly, and then we think the situation stabilises, and then we pick up better form after New Year, and we usually find ourselves in and around the top half of the table. And if things go our way, maybe we find ourselves towards the European places battling for that. Now, I don't think that's going to happen, but I still think we're going to be well away from danger, because even in that season when we sacked Silva, like we were talking about, and Ancelotti came in and we looked like we were in an absolute terrible state, we still could have finished, in the end, we still could have ended up finishing top half that season under Carlo. It's just we lost just a couple of games we shouldn't have lost, and that was it really. But it was well within our grasp finishing in the top half even in that season, the season where we sacked the manager in December and we're in the bottom 3 by December. We still could have finished 8th or 9th in that season easily. We did do it under Allardyce, didn't we? Like, we look at the state we were in under Allardyce when we sacked Koeman. We were in the bottom 3 when Allardyce came in, and we ended up going to 8th.
Yeah,
I know it's nothing to be proud of at all, like, because the football was terrible and the points tally was really, really low. But we were still nowhere near getting relegated.
No, and I think, like you said, I think the squad's way better now than it was.
It was certainly better than it was under Sam Allardyce when he came in.
Yeah, I was just about to say, if it wasn't under Silva, it definitely was from that Koeman Allardyce era transition of the two. We'll get back to the Arsenal game. Give me your sort of danger men. Who do you think could cause us a couple of problems here?
Oh, loads. Aubameyang loves a goal against Everton, doesn't he?
He's struggling at the minute as well. So
he's playing Everton at the exact right moments, isn't he? Yeah. Smith Rowe is a player who I really like, who seems like he's really the Arsenal share can be very heavy on a lot of players, isn't he? But he looks like a player who loves wearing the Arsenal shirt, and he's puffing his chest out, and he's grown because of it. I think he's going to be one of Arsenal's shining lights over the next few years if they can keep hold of them long term and they can start achieving things like you think they should be doing. And I expect to see a lot of them in the England team. So I think Smith Rowe's a cracking player. That Odegaard, didn't he score against Arsenal, against United last night?
Yeah, he did.
I think he did. Yeah, that Odegaard, he's very hit and miss, isn't he? But he's clearly a player with a lot of talent. It just depends on what side of the bed he wakes up on a lot of the time. Wouldn't be shocked at all if he comes and he just runs the game for Arsenal. They've got Ramsdale, who's probably in the best form of his career. Got a lot of people thinking he should be in the England team over Pickford. Not sure about that. I mean, I'm not as high on Jordan Pickford as a lot of Evertonians are, as I've mentioned before. But Aaron Ramsdale is having a very good time of it at the moment now, so I wouldn't be shocked if, even if we play well, we just can't get the ball past him when he's pulling off wonder save after wonder save. So there's a lot of players to worry about with Arsenal. The only person I don't worry about particularly is their manager, because, as I've said before, I just don't think Arteta's up to a job the size of Arsenal. I think he's done a lot of things right for the club that they'll benefit from long term. But in terms of just game management and tactics and picking the right players for the right moments, I still think Arteta's got an awful lot to learn as a manager. And I don't think he's going to be there long term. I think we will get rid of him, whether it's in the next 6 months, whether it's in the next 12 months. I think eventually Arsenal will start looking around for better. And Arteta will be kind of the guy who did all the hard work and then wasn't there to reap any of the rewards if Arsenal do become a club that's up there again in the next few years, like a lot of people think they will. No, Arteta's one of the few managers in the league who I trust Benitez to get the better of in a tactical battle. Honestly, it's just, you can get the better of a tactical battle all you want. If your players aren't good enough on the pitch and their players are, then 9 times out of 10, the other team with the best players is going to win, no matter how good the manager is.
Yeah, and the way they picked up form as well, it's just, it doesn't hold much hope for it. Obviously, I mean, I'm just looking now, and we'll get onto this before we go on to the wider one of the fans. But there is rumours that Everton, this come from the Danish paper via BT, that we are sort of inquiring about the Danish manager. Apparently, we're asking people in Danish football what he's like, so we can learn more about his management style, character, and media management. Which, by the way, if you have to ask people what he's like, you probably shouldn't be looking at him.
Exactly.
That screams, it's just
desperation. Yeah,
and not how you should be running a football club. But we spoke about this before. But do you think a heavy loss here? Say now it all goes wrong and they beat us 4-0. Do you think that is the end of Benitez with that bit of news added in now?
It probably should be, but I don't think it will be. I still think Benitez has got a lot of rope left with Mashiri, because, as we said, Mashiri's not even in the country, so it's not like Mashiri's going to the ground and having to get all this abuse to his face like the other board members were the other night. It's not like he's feeling the pressure directly. He's just doing off whatever he's doing, and it's all just noise miles away for him, isn't it? So, I mean, he can't just keep backing a manager when we keep getting terrible results after terrible results after terrible results, and then we do end up being in a relegation battle like we were just talking about we wouldn't be. So I still think Benitez, even if we get beat by Arsenal and we get beat badly, the pressure on him will go up even more. And the fans will be even more angry, and there'll be more talk of protests, and there'll be more talk of what are Everton doing as a club, where are Everton going. We'll stay in the media for all the wrong reasons. It will stay like a talking point. But I don't think Benitez is at the point where Mashiri's immediately looking around at a replacement, and as soon as he finds someone, he's just going to tell Benitez to do one. I still think Mashiri still is looking at Benitez and thinking, yeah, there's no reason for me to get rid of him. I still believe he's going to do what I brought him in to do.
Yeah, like I said, I think the Crystal Palace game is the one where it could be his camel's back. But
that could be the one where it's one too many. Yeah.
Yeah, but hearing that we're sort of trying to source around of what he's like, it doesn't fill me with much confidence.
I don't even know who the fella is. Genuinely,
No,
I couldn't tell you one club he's managed. I couldn't tell you one club he's managed.
And if that's true, neither do the powers that be. They don't know who he is either, which is quite quite concerning. And there's no point papering over cracks. But we'll move on to the bigger one, and that is the fan sort of protest. The 27 minutes for 27 years, where fans are it's been touted around on social media by Toffee Blues and a couple of other big fan Twitter pages, where fans are, expected to, against Arsenal, to leave your seat in the 27th minute to sort of show a protest against the board, the lack of, the incompetence going on at Everton. So just give us your thoughts on that, and how you think that will be taken from the people who it's aimed at, which is, Mejiri and the board members.
I don't know. I'm not in their heads in that sense. I know the same. I know what will happen if this protest comes off and it works, in the sense that a lot of fans take part in it. I can tell you exactly what will happen. You'll have all of the boards, media friends, and on the radio and in the paper the day after. The way they've been doing now after that derby, you're going to get all the usual culprits coming out and defending certain people on the board. You can't question his passion. I was with him on Sunday. He loves the club. Or in Marcel Brand's case, he's not had a chance. He's not had a chance to do what he was brought in to do. Blah 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 blah. So I expect a big sort of orchestrated defence of the board, and now basically the fans are wrong to do what they're doing, and now they should all just be angry at Mejiri, who's not even there. So that's what I expect. Now, in terms of the idea itself, whether I think it's a good one or not, I do, to be honest. I understand that a lot of people don't like the idea of like going out and marching and carrying banners like the Blue Union tried to do 10 years ago, which I was part of, in the sense that I took part in it. I agree with what they were doing and I went on the march. I do get that that's not everyone's style, but I think walkouts are what a lot of fans who are unhappy and want to sort of display how unhappy they are, express it publicly. I think that's an option that they find a lot easier to swallow and something you can get on board with a lot easier than rather than protesting in the streets and marching and trying to organise other things like banners and that you hold up in the stadium. I think actually just getting up and walking out and showing your disgust is something that a lot of fans might look at and think, yeah, I don't mind doing that. Now, no one in our fans, a lot of them will just go up and go downstairs and get a pint on the 27th minute and then come back on the 30th. Do you know what I mean? And then the whole idea was a bit pointless because the ground's still full a couple of minutes later. But I do like is it the Originals who've come up with the idea? I believe it's the Originals. Yeah, I believe it's the brainchild of the Everton supporters group, the Originals, and it's basically being backed now by a lot of other influential Everton groups. I'm for the idea, and I've got a ticket, and I plan on being there on Monday, and I plan on doing the same. I've only heard about this about 10 minutes before we started recording, because it only broke on Twitter, I think, in the last hour or so. And I wasn't really looking at Twitter until I got your DM message saying, like, let's come on, let's go. But from what I've read about it briefly, the first, like when I was scrolling down my timeline and kind of getting an idea of what this is and what it's about and what the aim of it is, I was looking and thinking, yeah, I can get on board with that. Personally, I think they've done very well picking a home game for this, because if it was an away game, then it would be a lot harder to sell, wouldn't it? Because a lot of fans spend money to travel to away games and maybe don't want to just get up and leave after 27 minutes and feel like they've had a wasted journey. The fact that it's a home game and it's going to be a night game where there's going to be a lot of cameras there, we're going to be on TV, and it's going to get attention, isn't it? It's not it's not going to be a 3 p.m. kickoff where a lot of the media who are going to be there on the day are just not even going to be bothered about it, and unless you were in the stadium, you probably won't even know it even happened. Which is what can happen easily.
Football, it'll have to be discussed by.
It will have to be. It will be a talking point. Carragher and Neville and David Jones are not going to let that go unmentioned, are they? Definitely not. Whereas when you try and organise some sort of protest on just a typical Saturday afternoon at 3:00, unless it's like a major success and thousands upon thousands of people take part in it, if it's just a few, like a small smattering of supporters when a couple of hundred do it, it's very easy for the people who report on the game to just brush over it, and in some cases not even mention it at all, is it? And then if that happens, then it kind of feels like the whole thing was a failure and no one was listening and it didn't achieve anything. Whereas the fact that they're going to pick a Monday night game to do it with all the cameras there, and you're going to have, as I said, loads of TV analysis at half time and full time and before the game, it's going to be impossible to not mention it unless the whole thing just doesn't happen and hardly anyone leaves a seat. But I think a lot of supporters will get on board with this and think, yeah, that's something I can get behind, something that I don't mind doing, and something where I won't feel like I've embarrassed myself afterwards, which is what, unfortunately, a lot of people think is the case when you go protesting outside the stadium. So, no, I'm going to take part in it myself. I really like the idea. And if you're sick to death of what's going on at the club as a lot of people say they are, and a lot of people would have you think that they are, because a lot of people say about how mad they are and how they want to organise this and they want to do this on Twitter, but then when it actually comes to getting off your backside and doing anything, a lot of people don't. Because we had this experience with the Blue Union. There was a protest march going past the old pub towards the stadium, and a load of people, the beer garden was rammed. It was full of people who were having a pint before the kickoff, and loads of people stood up and started clapping, saying, yeah, great, good on you, it's what you're doing. I was like, no, don't stand there and clap. Put your pint down and come and join the march. If you agree with what we're doing, then come and take part in it. We need numbers. Don't stand there clapping us as if you agree, but you're not actually going to get off your arse and do anything yourself. So that's what I hope happens. There's a lot of fans who are saying they agree with it, but I actually hope you agree with it to the point where you're actually willing to stand up, show that you publicly that you agree with it and you're willing to take part in it. If you're not willing to take part in it publicly, then stop saying you agree with it, because just you saying you agree with it on Twitter is pointless.
Yeah, that's fair enough. And I mean, we'll have to wait and see how well it goes. I mean, if it brings about change as well, hopefully that as well is another one. Hindsight, can't tell the future. Hopefully it does. If the fans all do it, like you said, it's going to have to be spoken about.
If the fans do it and it's done, if the fans do it or enough of the fans do it, then it will keep the spotlight on the board, and they want the spotlight to go away. That's what they want. And it's the same whenever at any club when the boards are under scrutiny. They want the whole story to just die. They want it to be a storm that just passes and everything will go back to normal, and most people just forget it ever even happened in the first place. That's what the Everton board wants. They want this to just pass. They're hoping to God that we win a game, so they can just, for once, the story will be something else. The story will become Everton finally win under Benitez, rather than Everton are basically a fan base on the verge of mutiny. That's what they're hoping for. But if we do this, and hope, then this will keep the story in the papers and keeping the attention on those issues, even if we actually get a result that's good.
I agree, mate. That is everything we've got time for, though, for the Everton Arsenal preview. Paul, it's been an absolute pleasure to speak to you. Thank you for coming on the channel, mate.
No problem, mate. Hopefully I haven't rambled too much for you.
No, it's been a pleasure, mate, to listen to. Don't forget to like the video, guys. Subscribe to the channel if you're not. And comment down below your score predictions, your thoughts on Arsenal, and all that good stuff. Let us know if you're going to go to the game. Don't forget, you can get all your Everton merchandise through the link in the description down below. You can also buy your jumpers from the Toffee Blues website, which will be in there. And we've also partnered up with Score Draw, so you'll be able to get your retro tops from there as well. And most importantly, stay safe.